So putting the turbo together, so far I've been putting on the hot housing onto the manifold by using bolts. Obviously the end result is going to be using studs. These are titanium studs. Did quite a lot of research, got really confused and just went for titanium, and they're damned expensive. Right, so what we're going to do is we don't want to use metal locking nuts at the moment because we just want to get these studs in. I'm going to use some stud lock. Going to, what you normally do is get 2 non-locking nuts. Oh, we can do it when it's on there. Anyway, let's put some stud lock on. Okay, so I'm going to go on this one. Screw in the shorter side. Screw in the shorter side. At the bottom out. Get 2 spanners. These are 12s. Lock them together, and then you can use the outer one to do up the stud. Nice and tight. Gonna just wipe off the stud lock. Just a little bit of stud lock around the bottom. Just get rid of that that's seeped out. And then what you do is you don't undo it, you break the lock between these two. You hold it with the bottom one, break the lock between these 2 nuts, like that, and then they just thread off, and then that one gets stuck on. That's right. So that is how you get your studs into your manifold, into your hot housing. So 3 more to go. Studs in. These are the titanium ones. They go into the exhaust manifold, so they're all locked in. These aren't titanium. These came with the flange kit. They've got don't have to do the double nut thing because you've got the end bits you can grab onto. So obviously that's fairly self-explanatory. So it's the small end that gets stud locked into the housing. So let's do one of these. Screw that into the housing. Do it up like that. There's a little bit of seepage, then try and not let that sit around. Amazing. Alright, so 2 more of those and then all your studs are done. So things are going on for the last time. I've taken a Stanley blade and just tried to clean up the face of this head. I've got a new gasket. I made sure I got the one with the heat shield just because it may help a little bit. There are some out there that don't have the heat shield. On eBay it can look like they've got it, but when this is greyed out it doesn't actually come with it. So this was actually being sold as a 1.8. It said it didn't fit the 2 litre, but it's exactly the same. So as always, eBay doesn't really work on that side of things. Nice new gasket on there. Then we've got the manifolds go back on. So I'm building up the hot side of the turbo. I'm putting the manifold on before I put it in the car. So I've got 3 metal locking nuts I'm putting the downpipe on with. I'm just going to do them up roughly for now, and then I'm going to measure out the gap the best I can. Right. keep working your way around, because there is no gasket. It's basically the two faces meeting up, a little bit like an AN fitting. It's the faces that are sealing it. Yeah, it's probably about as good as we're going to get. So let's tighten them up. Okay, so let's get this onto the car. And then I've got, these are titanium. I bought some titanium, the lightest thing in the world. Some titanium nuts as well. So they're titanium metal lockers. So again, they start to lock. So obviously heat that's better. You can't put anything like nylock nuts on here, obviously, because it will just heat up the nylock. So you have to use metal locking. Okay, so this is the metal gasket that goes between the exhaust manifold and the turbo hot side. Don't know if there's a particular way it's supposed to go up, but well, it's a bit sloppy. Alright, okay, so let's thread. And now we've got the studs for the first time to go onto there instead of the screws. And then we've got the nuts to go on. Everything's still lining up. I've taken a little bit more off this side chassis rail and then repainted it. So that should be a bit better. Managed to get that one on with the tips of my finger. Let's hope I can actually get a let's see if I can get a ratchet spanner on it. So I've taken my CRH, my core of my turbo. I've put a small bit of thread lock on these bolts and put those in for the oil drain. I've tightened up my water. I've tightened up my oil feed, which is, so you always have to have copper washer underneath. This has got some other type of washer that came with it. This has got a 1.5mm oil restrictor on it, So if you actually look down there, I don't know if you can see, it's a much smaller hole. Cleaned off the turbo, and now I haven't done this one up yet. Now I'm going to place it into the housing, and then it's this band. That holds the two together. Basically just literally clamps it together. So I've now put my drain on. This is AN8. It's the hose with the heat protective on, and then it goes down into, you can see, down there into the drain, into the block. I've got to do like that Jubilee down there. Just had to shorten it slightly because it was touching the steering column. It isn't anymore. The camera makes it look like it's closer than it is. It's not rubbing there, so that's fine. Yeah, so that's basically the clocking. That's basically where it has to be, because I can't get this any more vertical, and they say that's quite good for the water feeds anyway. So we're looking at putting the turbocharger together with its housing. I'm going to clean up a few bits in a minute, but the turbocharger core comes with a new O-ring which fits in this groove around here. I then purchased a new C-clip or collar. This has a particular way of going round, because you can see the chamfer going off, and that's to help it go into the groove, which is in here. So let's just clean up a couple of things just to make sure the surface is clean. So let's put the O-ring on. So that goes in that groove there. The bit I'm not going to get straight into, well, what I've done is I've marked the relationship of where I want that. So I've got the orientation off the car, so it's going to be mated up like that. And then the groove you've got to get this in is under there, and what I've now figured out is most probably I need to take all these fittings off, so I shouldn't have done that first, and then I can get a better look at this ring going in. So let's take those fittings off. So I've taken all the parts off. You can look down the side and you can squidge it down on the O-ring and things like that. I put it on a hard base. This bit probably isn't going to work. I haven't got any circlip pliers big enough to go in these holes of the circlip, so I've squished the circlip in the vise to get them down to the size of my circlips. I have a feeling as soon as I let go of that, it's going to break the tips off the pliers, but that's all I've got at the moment, so that's what I'm going to have to try and go with. So I've lined up my marks of where I want it. Really scared about doing this. Let's maybe even put some very dirty goggles on. So small now that I can't get it over the body of the... Oh my god. So I had to go to my dad's to use a tool to get this in. So I didn't have any tools. He's probably going to watch this video and he's going to find out what I've done. So I better buy him a new one of these. So this is a long pair of sort of needle pliers. And what I did is I just got an angle grinder and I ground the ends until they became basically a big pair of needle, circlip pliers. Goes in the holes quite nicely. You need a tool this big because I needed pretty much both hands to grip it to pull it in, and then I held it and I just sort of made sure I pushed it in with a screwdriver, and it's all gone in. It's all gone in nicely. So I checked down the edge of the front bit and it's definitely underneath the in the lip. So that is basically clocked there. It's meeting up with my 2 points. So that's that bit done. Got to get this back all together and mock up the actuator bracket, so that's the next job. So I'm still working on building the turbo and getting this area all prepped. Just a little thing, once I've connected this this oil drain, I've actually put some paraffin through that to try and clear out that and into the sump again, so I'll have to drain that. But what a lot of people have mentioned is the heat around this area. Obviously I've got heat wrap on the exhaust, I'm going to have a turbo blanket, I've covered all the hoses going into the turbo, and I've done all that, so I've done a good job there. But the one thing people talk about is this plastic rocker cover, as I get wet all over it. So what I've got, one second, what I've got is DEI sheet. So specs here withstands 400 Fahrenheit direct, 2000 radiant heat, blah 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 blah. Some people buy the 5cm tape you can get. That's fine. I didn't think, for the good stuff, I've used this before on a different project. It's nice and thin, so it goes around a little bit around corners, not too bad. But so you could do a strip there, you could do a strip there, but I thought it'd be better to have, because this has got little strength webbings down the side, which are going to be a little bit awkward. I thought it'd be better to have it in one big piece. So I'm going to try and do it sort of from that edge down. Probably have to cut around these bosses here. Not a lot you can do about that. But let's see how that goes. So this is the size sheet I've got. I think this is 12 inches by 24 because it's American. So as I'm going to try and do that whole part, so it's saying 13 centimeters just over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a section 13 centimeters probably on that bit, and hopefully that's my top and bottom nice neat edge done. So I've cut my piece 13 centimeters by 40 centimeters. Just going to release the top edge. Just take it slowly, bit by bit. It's quite flexible, this stuff, but that went alright. Everything like this, got to get it down. Do not want to stick it back on itself. Hopefully that's good enough. So I've cut these little bits out. I don't know whether I'll be able to stick a little bit on there. It's not that sticky, so I don't know, or whether I'll just leave that, and that's that's a more solid piece anyway. I think that's pretty good. Not a lot more I can do. So I've put all the fittings back on, tightened up, well not tightened up, but screwed on the oil drain. Let's get this mopped up again. So you've got your actuator lever here, yeah, I've got some bolts here. So I've got my actuator, which is a Mamba one. Got it second hand. You know, Facebook Marketplace, there's normally things on there. Just cleaned it up a little bit, but it looks fine. Came with lots of different springs. Comes with instructions about, obviously your electronic boost controller can override this, but you can set the spring in here. I spoke to the tuner and he said, you know, we're going very mild really, we're not going anything crazy, so put a 7 psi spring in it. 7 psi is what a leading manufacturer in the UK runs their stage 1 kit at, but obviously every car's different, turbo's different, manifold's different, and PSI is really just a measure. You can't look at one different car to different car, oh it's 7 psi. The PSI of a turbo is basically measuring the restriction, because it's the pressure you're having to push everything through. So if you've got a restrictive manifold, which this might be a little bit, you might have to run a little bit more pressure, PSI, to get the same kind of power, because there's more restriction in the whole air system. So that's all PSI is. That's all your boost is a measure of restriction of the components. So it came with lots of different springs. I've put a green one in there, so that's all sorted. And then obviously if you want to run higher boost, so if I want another stage map, let's say I want 8 PSI or whatever, you can do that via the electronic boost controller and trick the actuator. So that's fine, not a problem. Okay, so what is a problem is me connecting this actuator. So the actuator sits behind the ABS bit, but obviously back from the face of this where I can mount to the front. So I need to make myself up a bracket. I'm going to do a bit of cardboard aided design. I've already marked out using that the actuator end, and I just need to now work out where I want it, which is about there, and then make the cardboard template. So let's do that. So for my actuator, I made my cardboard aided design stepped bracket. I've transferred that onto 2mm stainless steel. Anyway, I transferred that onto there, so that's now my bracket's gone there. Let's mock it up for the last time. That goes there. Actuator slots through there. Like I said, I've now got the vent pointing upwards. obviously do it up, but I'll just take you off the stand a second. So that's what we've got going on there. Doesn't seem to foul because I've got an offset rod. That's the drain behind it, seems fine. Not hitting anything. Vacs there, so it's going to go over to here, so nice in there. Happy with that. Wow, another step closer. So one of the last pieces, but also one of the nicest pieces to go on, is this Forged Motorsport turbo blanket. This is a reference number. I got in touch with them, I showed them what turbo setup I had, and I said, you know, have you got a turbo blanket to fit this? They came back really promptly, really great service, came back and recommended this one. So let's have a look to see what we've got. Drop down, it's a bit windy. Okay, so what do we get in here? We get, thank you for purchasing. Turbo blanket has a short braking period. During this time it may give off a distinct odour which will dissipate after a few runs. It also, yeah, this is an important thing, it also loses its flexibility over the first heat cycles. So once it's fitted, it should not be removed as it will damage the blanket. So don't, if you're going to start it up and play with things, leave the turbo blanket off. Once you've sorted things, put the turbo blanket on. You know, okay, there may be down the road you might need to take it off, but generally you're not going to need to keep taking it on and off because it shouldn't be done. Obviously look on their website for Lost Viva products. They do turbo hoses, intercooler piping, all that kind of stuff. There's a 10% discount code in the description of this video, so have a look at that. And if you're going to buy stuff, so let's have a look. So there's some springs in here. Rid of the bag. So this is the turbo blanket, nice color to match my heat wrap of my downpipe. So all these fittings and that are stainless, which is nicely made. And what's good about this one is obviously I've got an actuator that's coming across, so what you do is you, like dirty hands, is you unpop one side and you should be able to slot that round. And then there's a spring that goes between these two to hold it together. And let me just get that ready. So what I found in the past is because it's quite hard to get the spring round, so you probably need to pull it round. So get something you can get hold of, tie wrap, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on this side of the turbo blanket. And let's give it a go. So let's thread things down. So once you've got it connected, you can snip off your cable tie. That's your turbo blanket on. So you've got your turbo blanket, you've got the heat shield, heat wrap on the exhaust. I put some heat shielding I had around the brake booster, heat shielding on the header, cam cover, and then obviously we've got thermal heat shield on these pipes as well. So yeah, it's really good. So nice forge item there. You're not going to want to take it on and off too many times. It's got the access for the actuator, so that's all good. And yeah, sorted. Nice. So Turbo Rebuild Limited, that supplied my CRH, the core of the turbo, which has been uprated. When they send out the core, they send you out this plunger with oil in it. So basically, before you get the turbo running in any way, you pre-lube it. So your oil feeds on the top here. Basically just going to squirt this oil in, and that's going to get some oil into the bearings and things like that. So we're not running it dry when it first starts. Great idea. There we go. So that's that in. Then I can reconnect the feed line, and that's ready to go. Okay, going to give it well, not a start, but a turnover. I've disconnected all the plugs. I filled it with oil. I've primed the turbo, and now I'm just going to turn it over, building up oil pressure before I consider starting. Still need to do the water system. getting 40 psi reading on the gauge. I don't know whether that's fine. Obviously it'd be higher when it's turning over, but let's see. I might need to look up what cranking psi is. So now looking at bleeding the coolant system, I got one of these kits, about 15 quid, because what you want to do is get the water level higher than the whole system. And as I'm running this turbo water line right at the top of the engine back there, I thought it best to get one of these kits. Come with a multitude of adapters and things for different size caps. So it is that one, but they need another rubber. It's good, isn't it? You buy a system and this bit seems to be too deep. Steal a rubber from another one. Okay. Okay. So it's not great, I have to admit, but hopefully it'll be enough, because I'm not actually pressurizing it, because this is letting the pressure out. I believe it's got a little stopper, so I guess so you can put that in and take it out once it is full. So I've put some antifreeze, coolant in, concentrate, so that's good. And then filling up with deionized water. And then I need to try and start it, which is ridiculously scary. Okay, plug the coils back in. The problem with oil level is the car isn't level at the moment. Might need a little bit more. Right, let's turn it over and see what happens. Right, no big loud bangs. That's always positive. So I guess what we need to do now is we filled this up, and then when the engine gets hot, the thermostat will open, and then that will suddenly suck all this water in